Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ask Huda. I'm your host, Jamil Rashid, and I'm happy to say I have with me today Sheikh Muhammad Salah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair for being with us today on Ask Huda, Sheikh.
Wa jazakum.
Okay, today we're going to go through your email questions. We get quite a lot of your email questions, so we're going to go through them today. So we won't be able to take any of your calls today. If you do want to send an email, our email address is ask@huda.tv. Sheikh, I'd like to start with a question from Sister Radia Abdul Rashid. She's asking about the name Rabia. She wants to know, has this any meaning in Islam, this name?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. All praise due to Allah, we praise Him and we seek His help. Whomsoever Allah guides is a truly guided one, and whomsoever Allah leaves astray, no one can show him guidance. May the peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Once again, correct your citation is needed here to know exactly the articulation point of the Ain. I believe you're talking about the name Rabi'a.
Yes, well, I mean, she spelled it R-A-B-I-Y-A.
As I said before, that the letter Ain is quite a difficult letter if you're not an Arabic speaker, so that's why it will require some practice. Anyway, the word Rabi'a is a noun which is a feminine name. Its masculine is Rabi'a, which of course means spring, under the spring season. In the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of removing the ham and relieving the sorrow and the grief, is to say, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His beautiful names and attributes. Then you conclude this by saying that أن تجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلبي, to make the Quran the spring for my heart. So Rabi'a is a feminine of Rabi'a, which means spring.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. The sister's got a second question. It's regarding what she can do in her menses. She says, am I allowed to cut my hair and clip my nails in this particular time of the month?
We stated a very important fiqh rule before, which is al-aslu fil ashya' al-ibaha. The original condition concerning anything in life which is not an act of worship is it is lawful, as long as there is no restriction, as long as there is no reference either from the Quran or the Sunnah that says it is restricted, either prohibited or disliked. So whether you are in the menses or not, it's totally up to you to cut your nails. There is no restriction on that during the menses. And some people say that because I'm in a state of impurity, and what will happen to a part of my body would be cut off in a state of impurity, has nothing to do with this case. For one reason, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, even when a woman is in a state of impurity, she herself is pure. Hadith Abu Hurairah, the famous hadith which we discussed before, when he once met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one of the avenues of Medina. So he saw him coming, so he hid from him. He slipped away and he hid from him. Then later on, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, what happened to you? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I was junub, and I hated to meet you in this condition, because he knows that the Prophet ﷺ would pat on his shoulders, would hug him, or shake hands with him. So he thought that I'm in a state of janaba, I'm najis, I'm impure. If the Prophet ﷺ touches me, that he too will get impure. So Nabi ﷺ said, Subhanallah. This is a beautiful word to be said once you're amazed at anything. Subhanallah. What let you understand this understanding? This is totally wrong. إِنَّ الْمُؤْمِنَ لَا يَنْجُسُ. So this is a reference. Al-Mu'min is always in a state of tahara, never gets impure. Before Islam, the Jews used to treat women during their menses as awful things, would boycott them, would keep them in separate rooms, would treat them as najis, dirt or impure, would not let them to cook for them, would not let them sleep on the same bed, and so on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came in Islam to explain to us that there is no problem whatsoever with them dealing with us in a state of the menses. Something have nothing to do with their personal purity. Not only that, even Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha ardaha was still under this misunderstanding due to it was the common concept. If a woman is in the impurity, she is, or is a woman, if a woman is experiencing her menses, she's impure. So once the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while he was in the masjid, asked her to give him the comb. So she said, "Inni ha'it." I'm in a state of menstruation. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Subhanallah, your period is not in your hand." So the period does not affect but only the mahal, the orifice where there is the bleeding comes from. Otherwise, the woman is tahira, and her nails and her hair and every body part. And that's why when she drinks, we may drink after her. As-su'r. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as Aisha narrated, that she would drink, and the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would take the cup or the glass and would drink from the same spot, put his lips where she put her lips. He would let her eat from first a bone covered with the flesh or meat, then he would take a bite from the same spot. So al-Muslim and al-Mu'min is always in a state of tahara, even if they are experiencing some impurities, whether minor or major.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. We have a question here from Sister Samar Helmi. She's asking about her husband's work, whether it's halal or haram. He sells certain products to cigarette companies so they can package their cigarettes, certain kind of tape, plastic material. She says, we know that tobacco itself is not allowed for you to smoke it, but does it mean that we're not allowed to sell this to tobacco companies? She says this is what keeps the company surviving, and it supports our family, the company that her husband has.
By now, I think all the viewers remember a very important verse, which is always used as a reference in cases like that. The verse is قول الله تعالى وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان, which means, and help one another to do what's right, to achieve righteousness and piety. And don't you help one another. ولا تعاونوا, this is a negation. ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. Do not help one another in fulfilling two things: committing sins and transgression or aggression. Examining any work that you are assisting in it, directly or indirectly. If the resultant is haram, then helping in this work by any means is haram as well. And that's why Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam cursed 10 people. Everyone who's dealing with the khamr, whether directly or indirectly, is been included in the curse of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he cursed them and asked Allah to put his wrath upon them, because they're helping. And we said, if a farmer knows that he's planting and growing grapes, and he's turning the grapes to a liquor company to squeeze them and ferment them and make liquor, then planting the grapes, which is originally lawful, becomes unlawful in this condition. So once again, I say to the sister, may Allah bless you for your keenness, and advise your husband to find an alternative, another job. Right away, I expect the answer, which is, there is a high rate of unemployment, I cannot find a job, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. That is the key. That is the key out of every difficulty and hardship, which is to fear Allah, to keep your duty to Him, to be righteous as much as you can, to put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is something that is missing in the life of most of us, which is, we think definitely that it is our job which is secure in our life. It is my company which is providing me for my livelihood. It is my boss who's maintaining. No one is maintaining nobody's life. There is only one Samad. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is only one Qayyum. Al-Hayy al-Qayyum, the ever-living, the maintainer, the sustainer, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do not rely on any means or any asbab or any worldly factors. Just put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In addition to the assurance which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivered to us in the ayah, وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. Allah describes exactly our case, that I have a salary, let's say $2,000 a month. But since I know that that's my only source of income, but I'm working in something that's haram, dealing directly or indirectly or haram, so I quit. Everybody would think, oh my God, what I'm going to do? I'm going to be homeless. I cannot pay the rent. I cannot do that. That's true. if you look at it worldly, materialistically. But when you look at it from this perspective, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. As a matter of fact, I have some proposals and offers from some people who have experiences through this program. That they were working either in banks dealing with riba as bank tellers, or working in companies which is serving alcohol or pork or whatever. Then they trusted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this program encouraged them to put their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they changed. And Allah gave them better jobs and better incomes. This is what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in the hadith, مَنْ تَرَكَ شَيْئًا لِلَّهِ أَبْدَلَهُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا مِنْهُ. It is so beautiful that whosoever gives up anything for the sake of Allah, simply because it does not please Allah, it is in contradiction with the divine commands or with the teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even if it is just mere makruh, disliked, he says, no, I'm not going to do it. Allah will definitely give him better than what he lost. He did not lose anything. You have a set provision that was decreed for you, not since you were born, not since you were in the womb of your mother, no. Before the creation of the heavens and the earth, 50,000 years before خلق السماوات والأرض, your provision is decreed for you and is preserved for you and is untouched. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, لن تموت نفس حتى تستوفي رزقها وأجلها. He received the revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assured him that no soul shall expire, no person will ever die before receiving his or her full course of what? Two things: provision and lifespan. That gives you a complete feeling of comfort, peace of mind, comfort for your eyes, and would distract your attention from anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's all controlled in His hand.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Got a question here from Sister Ahmed. She said, I'd like to verify if this is right in Islam. I was told by someone to read Surah Yasin 40 times, then blow on a glass of water and give that to a person who is sick, and this will cure them. Is there anything in the Sunnah of this, Sheikh, of this sort?
Look, reciting the Quran on the water, then drinking this water and showering with it, has a reference and is prescribed in a surah. Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah have mercy on him, when he traveled to perform a Hajj, he got very sick. He had very bad fever. He was not used to the weather of Mecca. His remedy was he would get a drink of Zamzam water and he would recite Surah Al-Fatiha on it. Then he would drink it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would cure him. And we narrated before several incidents like that from the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The problem is with the number. Where did you get this number from? 40. Or somebody said, okay, now I suggest to make it 70. And another sheikh will say, no, I tried it 65 times and it does work perfect. Now, when it comes to numbers, as how to perform the ibadah, reciting the Quran is ibadah. Doing the ruqyah is ibadah, either by the supplications or the Quran. Drinking Zamzam water is ibadah. Doing anything as a mean of remedy through ruqyah is an act of worship. But the problem is, how did you do it? Right? Numbers have to have a reference. So, if you recite any part of the Quran with the intention of seeking remedy and cure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then drink it, that is valid. 100%, no problem with that. But when you specify, even Surah Al-Fatiha, and you say, 15 times, what makes it 15, and what makes it 20, what makes it 25? Only Al-Musharra', legislator. And we all understand that the wahi, the revelation, has been seized by the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So if somebody claims that I think it is better, I think I tried it and it does work, you have to back up this claim with a reference, and there's no wahi anymore.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Got a question here from Brother Mahbub. He says, must a person slaughtering an animal or bird be in a state of ablution, and what dua should he say? Should he say Allahu Akbar only, or is there anything to add to this?
It is highly recommended to maintain wudu throughout the entire time, state of tahara. but it's not a condition for the validity of the slaughter or at-tazkiyah, the sacrifice of the animal. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed us to certain etiquette before and while slaughtering an animal. He says sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a sound hadith, إن الله كتب الإحسان على كل شيء فإذا قتلتم فأحسنوا القتلة وإذا ذبحتم فأحسنوا الذبحة وليحد أحدكم شفرته وليرح ذبيحته. In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ informed us that Allah ordained kindness and gentleness in everything, even while slaughtering the animal. He said that you should sharpen your blade, make sure it's sharp, okay? And you should comfort your sheep or goat or cow. Comfort by lying down the animal on its side, and make sure that you do not slaughter it by another while another animal or animals are watching. And while you're slaughtering, you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim or Allahu Akbar or Bismillah. Just mentioning the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient, because the ayah says وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا مِمَّا لَمْ يُذْكَرِ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ. So if you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, or Alhamdulillah, any of that, and it would be best if you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Jazakallah khair. Sister Yasmin Khan asked a question about salams, replying to salam. She said somebody gave a reply to me. I said Assalamu alaikum. They said Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa maghfirah. Okay, she says this maghfirah, is this something from the sunnah, this particular portion? I think she said wa barakatuh wal maghfirah. Is this something from the sunnah, Shaykh?
I want to assume I'm sitting in this meeting and somebody walks in and says, wa maghfirati, wa salawati, wa zakawati, as we hear some of the Arabs say that. So when I say, hey, this is not the greeting which Allah taught us, nor is it the same one which the Prophet taught us, he's going to say, do you know what is the meaning of maghfirah? Oh yes, it means forgiveness. So what's wrong with that? I'm asking Allah to grant you forgiveness. What's wrong is you put it in the wrong place. Is the greeting of Islam, which is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, consists of three components. First is peace. Second, mercy. Third is blessings, which means peace be upon you, and God's mercy and His blessings. Okay. Is it any of these three? No. Who taught us this greeting? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam this greeting. And Jibreel taught it to Adam alayhi salam. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught it to us. Is it an act of worship? It is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا حُيِّيتُمْ بِتَحِيَّةٍ فَحَيُّوا بِأَحْسَنَ مِنْهَا أَوْ رُدُّوهَا. That's a command. And He informed us that the greeting of Ahlul Jannah is this greeting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam once was sitting, and a man walked in and said, Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said 10. Then a while later, somebody walked in and said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The Prophet ﷺ said 20. And a third walked in later and said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So the Prophet ﷺ said 30. He was asked, O Messenger of Allah, what's 10, 20 and 30? He said, the first one said, Assalamu alaikum, that gives you a reward of 10 good deeds. Have you said, wa rahmatullah, they become 20. Have you said, wa barakatuh, they become 30. And when is it commended according to the ayah? If somebody says, Assalamu alaikum, you say, you increase, that's recommended. بأحسن منها. You say, Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Somebody says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, you say, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. But where is the word maghfirati? Or salawati, or zakawati, all of that. It's not in this instruction which the Prophet ﷺ. And once again, we'll go to the reference, which by now, I believe most of the viewers have memorized it. The sound hadith. Follow and do not innovate in the sound hadith. Whosoever innovates in this matter of ours, which is our religion, anything which does not belong to it, would be rejected. No, I would rather maintain the 30 good deeds. It would be best.
Jazakallah khair. Brother Samir Mir asked a question about his salah, about khushu in his salah, concentrating in his salah. He says, usually I find myself that I can concentrate for the first two salahs, but I wander away, my mind wanders away, I start thinking about my work and so forth. He says, how valid are my prayers when I'm in this situation? I mean, are my prayers valid? Are our prayers valid, Sheikh, when we do this?
The hadith says that one would not receive from his prior reward but for the part which he was attentive to. لَيْسَ لِلْمَرْءِ مِنْ صَلَاتِهِ إِلَّا مَا عَقَلٍ. Only what you understood, only what you were paying attention to, what you focused and concentrated in the salah, this is the part which counts. What about when you're thinking about work, job, the car parked in the wrong place, the traffic ticket, whatever, and the sister forgot the tray in the oven is going to get burned, and somebody called and the answer machine picked and he or she were listening to the message on the answer machine. All of that does not count at all. That's why there is a beautiful book which is called 33 Reasons to Obtain Khushu' fi Salah. I highly vouch for this book and recommend it for every Muslim to read it. And I believe it's available in English as well. And I recommend for people who have more than one language, bilingual or whatever, to translate this book to the language of their own people. The most important ibadah of the ibadat, the bodily ibadat, is as-salah. And the most important at all is as-salah, because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, as-salatu imadud deen, is the main pole and pillar of the deen. Man aqamaha aqama ad-deen. Whosoever established the salah have established the deen, and whoever ignores it, neglect it, he has neglected the whole deen, the whole religion. Accordingly, one must exert his and her maximum effort to obtain khushu' fi salah, and tranquility. In this beautiful book, it shows you that khushu' in a salah does not get accomplished simply by while you are in the salah. There are things to be done ahead of the salah and to be maintained while you are in the salah. So please make sure you read this book, because it's very, very useful for every Muslim with this regard. But briefly, remember that the part which you're not attentive in the salah, that doesn't count. Not only that, the Prophet ﷺ said, one actually might finish his prayer and he will only get out of this prayer 1/9 of it, 1/8, 1/7, 1/6, up to 1/4. Meaning, the person would only get whether half of it, 1/3 of it, 1/4 of it, based on how much concentration you had in the salah.
Jazakallah khair. The brother's got a second question about a bank loan. He says, my father got a loan from a bank for a house that we constructed. After paying back all the installments, now we've got our house and we're living in this house. Is our property, this house, halal? Are we allowed to keep this property? Now we know that this loan was not supposed to be taken from this bank. No, it's interest-based loan.
Oh, so it is interest-based.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, you already answered the question. Because up to this last part of the question, and this is a very important notice here, which is that normally the mufti would give the fatwa based on the question. So basically the questioner can shape the answer of the sheikh through asking his question in a certain format. Like somebody asked the sheikh once that me and my wife were performing Umrah and we intended ihram before we enter Jeddah. Yet when we entered Jeddah, we have the ihram clothes on and we are in a state of ihram. We decided to stay for a day or two in Jeddah. We didn't go directly to Mecca. But later on we went and we performed the Umrah. Is it okay? So basically the sheikh understood that he might be asking or he should be asking about the 2 days which he stayed in Jeddah before performing the Umrah. He said, it's perfectly okay, no problem with that. So after he answered, said, oh, but by the way, I embraced my wife sexually when I was in Jeddah. And now the answer is completely different. So when you say, I took a loan, there is nothing wrong with taking a loan. As a matter of fact, what is the ruling on lending and borrowing? Loans in Islam. The longest ayah in the Quran is ayatul dayn. It's talking about the legitimacy of lending and borrowing and the technique, the mechanism of doing that, writing that down, giving a certain fixed time for the loan and having witnesses, etc. Right? So it is, and the Prophet ﷺ borrowed money. And the Prophet ﷺ bought some food from a Jew. and he mortgaged his own armor with him, and this is dain. Okay, so it is approved in Islam. But what's not approved is the interest-based loan, because every loan which is accompanied by interest, anything, whether a little or a lot, that you take back when the borrower returns the loan, this is interest. And both parties are involved in this and indulge in the sin of dealing with riba. The Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى آكِلَهُ وَمُؤْكِلَهُ وَكَاتِبَهُ وَشَاهِدَيْهِ. So if you have taken a loan with interest, this is definitely with a consensus of all the scholars and reference from the Quran and from the Sunnah. This is a major sin that you should rush to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. And the first thing that you should do is to change this mistake. So if you still have this loan, get rid of it right away. Even by selling the house, it would be okay if you live in an apartment until you are financially capable. Or find a generous man, family, friends, so that they can give you a goodly loan, which is not an interest-based. So you can pay off your loan to the bank and start paying them back on time.
Okay, and just before we're going to take a short break, but the question's got attached another segment to it, is what do you do? Do you sell that house and then keep that money? What do you do with that money now that you've got, if you have to sell that house?
You know what's really interesting? When some people put them in trouble, then they come to the sheikh and say, yeah, what is the way out? What is the solution? You put yourself in this situation in the first place, so you have to find a solution. What if, God forbid, that one has a very luxurious house, and now he's in debt, and he has to settle this debt, or he will be in prison? Or, God forbid, his son or daughter or wife or very close, beloved family member is due for an operation, and they don't have the cash. So he has to sell the house. What are you going to do? He's going to sell the house. So the answer is very simple, is based on what you can do right now. I suggested a few things. I suggested talking to friends, intimate friends, family members, your employer, if you can mortgage anything and get a loan, but a loan that is a goodly loan. What if you can't? Then move to a smaller house. Move to an apartment or to a flat until you have the cash, or you have the resources, or somebody to lend you a goodly loan. Main thing, that you should not spend the night while you are indulged into an interest-based loan. Allah the Almighty says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَذَرُوا مَا بَقِيَ مِنَ الرِّبَا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. This ayah is very clear. I don't see how could any person not understand this ayah. The ayah is very simple to understand. O you who believe, fear Allah and keep your duty to Him, and leave and give up and abandon even the remains of riba, if you truly believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he put a condition, that if you truly believe in Allah, then you must give up on riba,
Subhanallah.
whether either by paying or taking or charging. What if you neglect this divine call and ignore it? Then wait. For what? There is a divine threat. Allah is threatening you. Allah is warning you. فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And He has used a very tough, severe word, which is war. Then Allah declares the war against you, against those who challenge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why do you think the Muslim world, with all the resources which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon them, are drowned in debt, unemployment, and their life is in many places are miserable? Many Muslims are starving to death. Why? Simply because these are ni'am that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon us, whether it's oil or natural resources or fruits and vegetations, whatever. We ignore all these ni'am and we challenge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we take the wealth which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon us and put it in Western banks. Oh, they're dealing with riba. Oh yeah, but this is the 21st century. What do you mean? Was God there different than now? So now those who neglect the ahkam of the sharia and ignore the threats and the warnings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are exposing themselves to being deprived from the blessing in this life and deprived from happiness, in addition to the severe punishment which is awaiting them on the Day of Judgment. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show us the straight path and to make us rightly guided.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, with that, we're going to take a short break and inshallah return in a couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaykum as-salam.
Jazakallah khair.
The true life of the Muslim starts at death. If you wish to enhance your knowledge of the Islamic perspective on the hereafter, this life doesn't go on forever, but we do so little to prepare for it because most of us don't know what happens after this life ends. If you want to be amongst those who know, then join us every Saturday at 1930 GMT for the inevitable journey.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ask Huda. Just to remind you, this episode we're going through all your email questions, so please don't give us a call. We won't be able to take any of those today. If you do want to send an email to us, send it to ask@huda.tv. Sheikh, Sister Jafar asked a question about a situation in her home country. She said, I'm a Western revert to Islam, and like most reverts, I'm the only one in the family. She said, I have a great husband and good children, mashallah, alhamdulillah. She said, recently my husband and I have decided to relocate from the West to a Muslim country. Unfortunately, it's not going down very well with her sister who looks after her mother, and it's made their relationship very difficult because she looks after her mother. Sister said, I don't want anything to do with you, you can't come to visit your mother and so forth if you leave the country. She's saying, should I leave the country or should I stay so I can keep in touch with my mother at least?
Well, this is a decision will be based on the needs of the family. If they think that they cannot preserve their deen and they cannot freely practice their religious commitment, or their iman is decreasing, or their children are going astray, God forbid, and they have to move for this reason, then of course that's a priority. Especially they said that they wanted to go to a Muslim country to learn the religion since she's a revert and so on. So these are all valid reasons. And the decision will be decided based on their needs, and the decision will be taken by both the couple, the husband and the wife. If the sister disagrees or agrees, that's something should not affect their decision.
What about a situation where you are in a different country and your parents are far away from you? How much rights do they have on you for you to return and look after them? I mean, say, many people are in this situation. I myself are in a similar situation. What do I do? Should I return to my home country to look after my parents?
We all agree that the command of taking care of one's parents and being kind and dutiful to them comes right after the command of the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshiping Him alone. But now, we have to understand the following. You can take your mother with you wherever you go, if it is only the mother, or both of your parents, if they don't have any other person but you. Once Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had a man who came to him, he accepted Islam, and he wanted to join the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the battlefield. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, do you have any parents? He said, yes, I have 2 old parents. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, go back, return. فِيهِمَا فَجَاهِدْ. Very, very interesting answer. He said, your jihad will be through taking care of them. Basically, the explanation of the hadith says that they did not have but him to look after them. But the case would be totally different if there was somebody else to look after them, another son or another daughter. But if it is only you, then the priority will be laid on you to take care of your parents at first. If they don't have the chance to move with you, then you must stay with them. The priority, of course, is to take care of them.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Sister Jaffa has another question. She says, a friend of mine is married and her husband has financial problems. Now he's asked his wife to sell her gold, the gold that they got when they got married, to ease their problems. Now she's saying, should my friend obey her husband? And will she get reward for Allah for doing this, Sheikh?
This is not a command to say obey or disobey.
Mm-hmm.
If your husband is having a hardship, your husband, the father of your kids, one whom you trust, who's been providing for the family for so long, every one of us is subject of having hardship, some adversity, lack of resources, being sometimes getting laid off, whatever happens. So having a wife at home who would comfort him and at least mutually show him that she's willing to support him by every possible mean, that gives a lot of assurance to the person. He doesn't have to wait until he asks her to sell her gold, which he already bought her, to ease their difficulty. She should really take the initiative and offer him. But the question is, does she have to do that? Is it a must upon her? And especially if this is her positions, this is her wealth. No, it is not a must. But this is something that is due to the kind of relationship between you. We said, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. If it is highly recommended for us to lend to people who are not related to us, simply to give them an ease and to give them a way out of difficulty and hardship. What about the case with the husband? As a matter of fact, you can pay him out of the zakat dues on your wealth if you have any. Because Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, once his wife was ready to pay her zakah. So he said, I'm more worthy than anybody else to take your zakah. She said, but you are my husband. He said, so? She said, not before I asked the Prophet ﷺ. So she went to ask him, and there was another lady who was actually having the same condition. And Nabi ﷺ said, certainly, he is eligible for your zakah, to take your zakah, because you're not financially responsible for maintenance of the family. It's his. But if he's poor and broke, then he's eligible to take zakah from anyone, except from the father. If it is the son or the father, they cannot take the zakah from each other, because each one of them is responsible for the welfare of the other. So if it is the wife, he said yes. If the wife is poor, can the husband give her out of his zakah? No, because that's his responsibility. So now, if there is a state of love and trust, I don't think she would ever ask this question. But if you think that this man is in trouble and he's not really taking care of the family in the past, but now he's in trouble, even if you consider him a stranger and you give him a loan, you'll be rewarded for that.
Jazakallah khair. Sister Nafisa Mustafa has a couple of questions. The first is, I want to ask if it's allowed for a Muslim married woman to work in an office or to teach in a school, but not religious subjects. She's saying subjects such as maths and English and so forth.
I don't understand what is the difference between a married woman and a woman who's not married. What difference does it make? A woman is a woman whether she's married or not. If we're talking about what's lawful and unlawful concerning jobs, we discussed that in details repeatedly, and we said, number one, if she's working in a field which is protective, no mingling with men, no unnecessary mingling, and she's doing something really productive, very useful, being a gynecologist, being a female physician, being a pediatrician, being a female teacher or an instructor, all of that is very useful for the community, and we have to have plenty of females filling in these positions. In addition to, sometimes in a case where a woman is the only sponsor of the family, of course it is permissible. So working, generally speaking, with the previous conditions is permissible for a woman. So there is no problem with that. And we do not differentiate between whether she's married or not, only in one thing, which is in case that she's married, that has to be approved by the husband. If he disapproves it, even if she wants it, she will not work.
Jazakallah khair. The second question from the sister is about somebody passed away in Ramadan and they weren't able to perform all of their fasts. She says his relatives have fasted on his behalf to fulfill all those fasts of his. She says, is this allowed for them to do?
May Allah bless them for that, but if somebody passed away in the beginning of Ramadan, he doesn't owe any fasting in Ramadan. In the middle of Ramadan, he doesn't owe anything after he died because he expired. the takalif and the commandments are due on those who are not only living, they are incompetent, and they are aware of what's going on, conscious. But if somebody was unconscious, in a state of unconsciousness, if somebody died in the middle of Ramadan, khalas, the rest is not due upon him. But a woman came to the Prophet ﷺ, and the hadith was Sahih in the Bukhari, and she said that my mother passed away and she owed a month of fasting. Okay? Before. Do I fast on her behalf or in her state? The Prophet ﷺ said, what if your mother was in debt? Would you settle her loan? Would you pay off her debt? She said, yes. So An-Nabi ﷺ answered by saying, فَدَيْنُ اللَّهِ أَحَقُّ أَنْ يُقْضَى. Then Allah's loan is more worthy to be settled and paid off. So go ahead and fast on her behalf. And another hadith was regarded to a man whose father did not perform Hajj and so forth.
Jazakallah khair. Brother Mustafa Zakah asked a question about zakah actually. He said, I heard a fatwa that said there's no zakah on paper currency, only on gold, silver, animals, grains and so forth, because it's mentioned in the Quran. He says, I have some money and it's reached the nisab amount. I want to know, is paper currency zakatable, if we can use that term?
This is a very interesting fatwa. Of course, I've never heard of it before. Does not even exist. But that is a problem when somebody volunteers to speak in a subject which he's not aware of. And it is very obvious that if any of us get sick, we know whom to visit. Versus if my car breaks down, you know whom to visit.
That's right.
So why it's not the same case whenever there is the most important concern, the deen, our relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine if there is no zakah on paper currency, then everyone will not be interested in gold and silver, at least Muslims. Everybody would keep his wealth and his possessions in this format. Of course not. There is a zakah on that, and whosoever informed you with that is actually misled you.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, got a question here from a sister. She says, I'm married and Hajj is fard on me. I haven't performed Hajj before, but my husband has performed Hajj. My brother is willing to take me for Hajj. Now, should I go to Hajj with him, or should I wait until my husband has enough money so he can then accompany me? Is it a sin, basically, if I go without my husband, she's saying?
If you have the facility of the financial capability, and you have the mahram, whether the mahram is your husband or your brother, then you should not delay. You should go right away once you have the chance. Because the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam advised us to do that in one hadith. He says, you never know. This year you have a ride, maybe you will not have next year. This year you're healthy, maybe things would change. This year you have the financial means, you never know what's going to happen. So based on that, as long as you have al-istita'a, which is the case of the female, that the financial capability and the physical ability in addition to the mahram. If they're available, do not postpone it. And you never know, maybe later on, inshallah, you can perform Hajj with your husband. It is, of course, very different when a woman performs Hajj with her husband, even different than performing Hajj with her own father. Because the husband is very protective in a way that she can perform tawaf along with him, she can perform sa'i along with him, and she would enjoy very pleasant moments that she would definitely need her husband to be around. So, this is something very pleasant and very wanted. But the priority is to perform Hajj right away as long as you have accomplished the means.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, Brother Abdurrahman asked a question about standing in Salah when he's praying in Jama'ah. He said, should we touch our ankles to each other, or should I just keep as close as possible to the person next to me? I've heard it's obligatory for us to keep as close as possible.
This is exactly true. The Prophet ﷺ would line up the people in the row as they were in the military, and would ask them to keep foot next to foot and shoulder next to shoulder, and not to leave gaps, since Satan would fill in the gaps. And there is a very important thing I want to mention here, that a few months ago I was visiting one state in America, and I prayed in a masjid where there was an Afro-American brother who was teaching the Quran. So we chatted, and I figured out that he was an officer in the Marines. And he said that one day, all of a sudden, he kept hearing the news about Muslims and this and this and that, and there was a Super Bowl. So he decided to go and visit one of the places of worship for Muslims. He had no clue whatsoever about Muslims. So he opened the Yellow Pages, and he got the number of an Islamic center, where he got the direction and he went to visit them. He said, once I saw them lining up in the Salah, it was breathtaking. I was just affected by this scene. Since he was in the military, and saw how people line up and said, without any commander, without a whistle, everybody just lined up automatically, foot next to foot, shoulder next to shoulder. It was very attractive to me. And that was the very first thing that attracted me to Islam. And from there, the next visit, I came to accept Islam.
Subhanallah.
Okay. Of course, the story have some more details, but I just use this as a reference. The catch in the story that the way Muslims line up in the Salah, very well organized. They don't have to draw a line. They don't have a whistle. They don't have somebody to line them up. But they know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look at a line or a row which is crooked. So right away, and you can tell when you see a couple million people praying during Hajj or during Ramadan behind one Imam in Mecca and in Medina. You see the magnitude of people. And all of that in a few minutes would be lined up automatically. Right away, everybody knows what they do. So the sunnah is to have foot next to foot, shoulder next to shoulder, and not to leave gaps in between. There are some people from certain cultures. They feel very, very offended if you bring your foot next to them. So they move away. They move their foot away. Then you move further close to them. They move away. Don't approach them anymore. You tried your best. If everyone leaves a gap between his feet, that's equivalent to the width of his chest, that will be sufficient, and we will fill in the gaps. But if somebody is spreading his legs, and another person is collecting them, that would create the error right there.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, I've got a question from a sister about dawah and spreading the dawah. She says, is it okay for me to photocopy a copyrighted book? Now, this book has got information about Islam and dawah for the purpose of just giving it as gifts to people, but not selling it. So it's a dawah book, it's got some information on Islam. She wants to distribute it, but it says it's copyrighted.
We said before, in Islam, copyright is considered. And this is one of the rights of the human rights. Everyone preserve this right. But the scholar said, exempted the books of da'wah, the books of the useful knowledge which are not available. In this case, it's okay as long as you're not copying them for sale or personal interest or personal profit, but it is for the propagation of da'wah. And in this condition, the author of the book would not mind at all. So because we all have the same goal.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for all the answers today. Well, that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Ask Huda. If you do want to send an email, please send it to ask@huda.tv. I'll leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
وجزاكم بارك الله فيكم.